If you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe and become part of this community. Oh, and also, go cop that fresh merch and listen to my new album in the description. I want to start this video with a disclaimer because what we're going to be talking about today is just a theory. This is not supported by any statements from Travis Scott, and this is not what likely the actual album will turn out to be, but it is one possibility and one thing that popped into my mind reading a lot of comments, talking to a lot of you guys, and today I wanted to share that theory with y'all. So as a disclaimer, not confirmed, just a theory. Now let's jump straight into this. So Travis Scott is rumored to drop his new album Utopia this year. We have a couple of hints for this. I've talked about the latest one in a video I made a couple of days ago, so make sure you watch that one after this video to make sure you're caught up on what the latest news and the latest status on this record is. But today I wanted to talk about a theory, what the whole concept of utopia and dystopia could actually materialize in a final record dropping. So let's talk about this. So we've gotten multiple hints as to dystopia and utopia dropping. I've talked about this quite a lot in the past. The kind of, general accepted opinion is that dystopia, it was actually going to be the mixtape before Utopia, just like Days Before Rodeo was before Rodeo and Birds in the Trap was before Astroworld. That is kind of the way that Travis is rocking, releasing a mixtape that then leads up to the actually big album. And the same thing happened with Astroworld. He announced Astroworld and talked about it before actually dropping Birds in the Trap. The same thing happened with Utopia in this sense, because he announced Utopia, but then also we got a couple of hints towards dystopia, like the movie script from A24 that you could definitely tell said dystopia on the cover that was like blacked out because utopia would have just been too few letters for that. And we got we got two singles, like the Dystopia singles. We've got Mafia and Escape Land that dropped on November 5th as the Astroworld Festival event happened. And after that, of course, his whole career and the whole motion kind of died down, so that, kind of took the momentum out of it. But that was like the Dystopia introduction. On the cover, it said Dystopia. So we kind of thought that something was going to come, maybe leading up to the mixtape, and then after that, the album, Utopia. But that didn't happen, likely also because of the Astroworld Festival incident. So maybe, people are thinking those two singles are just what is Dystopia, and Utopia is now coming as the next album. But then we got the Billboard signs for Utopia, and that was like another just hint that Utopia was coming, and that was maybe like the biggest one that kind of, discredited the theory that dystopia was dropping before Utopia. So that kind of made people think there is no dystopia. Maybe just those two singles, as I just said. But then a couple of days ago, and this is the stuff that I talk about in the other video, kind of going more in depth on this one, is that we got a Instagram post from him, sharing pictures of him being in the studio working on music, working on an album. And the caption for this post, for this picture, or those two pictures, is Topia. So, and this is kind of what drove me crazy back when that happened, is like, he is saying Topia, and that could refer to both Utopia and Dystopia. Now, of course, this could just be a reference to Utopia, but if it was, he would just say Utopia, and that would get people really hyped, just like with the Billboard signs that, said Utopia, and people got hyped for Utopia. But by just saying Topia, to me, this seems like he is telling us that there is actually something other than Utopia coming. Otherwise, he would have just said Utopia. So, most likely dystopia, because that also has topia in the name. And this kind of throws the whole idea in the room again of, dystopia dropping before utopia. But here's the thing. Now, I read this from a comment the other day. It was under that last video I made on the post, and it's by my man Mark Anthony. Shout out to you. He said, if I'm being honest, what if Travis is going to drop a 2-disc album? And you can already see that I replied to this. Yeah, could be, and it would be like the duality between between dystopia and utopia. And that is a theory that I've kind of thought about ever since I dropped that video that kind of started to just materialize in my head. And it's this. So it's not going to be a tape before an album, or an album before a tape, or dystopia before utopia, or vice versa. It could actually be a 2-disc. Now, it could be the first half of the record could be utopia, and the other record could be dystopia, or, vice versa, obviously. And this would perfectly fit into the way that you could kind of do this conceptually, because you could display an actual duality between a utopia and dystopia. Utopia being like the perfect world and everything being in the best perfect state that it could be in, and dystopia being like this dark, just really bad and really dystopian world. Obviously, that's where the word obviously comes from. And you could do this conceptually so well, and I think that Travis Scott could pull this off really dope. And musically, this could also be displayed by having Utopia be more lighter tracks that Travis could get on. Like, for example, the first thing that pops into my mind is Euphoria off of that Don Toliver album, Heaven or Hell. Like, that was a pretty upbeat, pretty like light Travis Scott song. It still felt very dope. It still felt very psychedelic, but more like, in like a lighter tone. And then on Dystopia, you could have a lot of the darker tracks. So musically, you could do this with switching between major and minor keys, for example. So there are a lot of ways that you can pull off this duality and this 2-disc theory of utopia and dystopia. And this would also go hand in hand with the post of him just saying topia. Him just saying, okay, this new album is not going to be utopia or dystopia. Maybe it's just topia in all, and then it's divided into utopia and into dystopia. And kind of the more I think about this, the more it would make sense. And Travis Scott is also someone who I think would, think about something like that, and who would put that in a very creative and artistic way, and kind of execute that in that way. So, and if that does happen, then come on, I called it right here. But of course, as I said, this is just a theory. It's kind of like the hints that I have towards this, but it's still very far-fetched. I know a lot of y'all are going to say this now, but it's just something that I like to think about, and I would like to know what you think about this as well. We still have to wait on official confirmation for anything on the new record. We didn't even get like an official post from him. This Utopia post on Instagram is the closest we're getting towards it. We still don't have a single. We don't have a release date. We don't even know if it's coming this year. But just judging from, him also having the billboards and him now dropping this, this post, it's kind of looking like it. Sometime during the summer. That's also when it makes the most sense to release, because people are outside listening to music, and especially for someone like Travis Scott, that would make sense. But this is my theory. Topia being a double disc, utopia and dystopia, and it's kind of like displaying this duality between the two. So this is my thoughts on this. Now let me know what you think about this. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? If you do, then please let me know why. What are your thoughts on this record? Do you think this could make sense with this double disc record? Or do you think it's going to be a mixtape, then an album, or vice versa, or however he decides to execute this? All of your thoughts on this, please let me know in the comments down below. If you watched this video to the end and liked it, and you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, hit that like button, and go follow my social media, and most importantly, join my Discord in the description. Until the next one, you'll have an incredible day, and you'll take care.